The trouble began the moment our wedding invitations were sent out. That's when Isabella's childhood friend, Julian, rushed back into the country with a singular, disruptive purpose. He insisted on what he called a pre-wedding test. "You're an orphan," he declared, his voice dripping with condescension in front of our friends. "You must be after her money, 100%. Pass a month-long test if you want our blessings." I looked to Isabella, expecting her to shut down this absurdity, but instead, she gave her approval. And so, with Isabella's blessing, her wealthy friends began their campaign of cruelty. In the biting cold of winter, with temperatures dropping to 20 or 30 degrees below zero, they thought it was hilarious to dump a bucket of ice water over my head. The shock sent my body into turmoil. I was soon racked with a high fever and seizures. Not long after, in the dead of night, a mysterious fire broke out in the wing of the mansion where I was staying. I was lucky to escape with my life, nearly getting my spine crushed by a falling beam. These trust fund kids, with nothing better to do, devised an endless series of these so-called pranks. I understood my position perfectly. As an orphan with no family to speak for me, there would be no one to back me up if something went truly wrong. Their final act before the wedding was the most personal. Julian stole the service medals my parents and grandparents had left me, the only tangible connection I had to my family. He taunted me with an arrogant smirk. "Feel free to try and get them back. Otherwise, my dog is missing a necklace." The final straw came just 2 days before we were supposed to be married. I was heading downstairs when my foot hit a patch of slick cooking oil on the polished floor. My balance vanished, and I tumbled from the second-floor landing, crashing hard onto the foyer below. An excruciating pain shot through my arm, and I gritted my teeth, clutching it as I struggled to push myself up from the cold marble. Through the haze of pain, I could hear the nearby servants covering their mouths, trying to stifle their snickers. "Julian got him again," one whispered to another, their laughter like needles. "He's quite tough, isn't he? Gets messed with this much and still won't leave her." Just then, Julian's familiar, smug voice echoed from the doorway. "It's not every day a sparrow gets a chance to become a phoenix," he announced, striding into the hall. How could he possibly leave? He was dressed impeccably, his chin held high, a stark and cruel contrast to my disheveled, pained state on the floor. The group of rich kids with him sneered down at me. "I can't imagine why Isabella would pick someone like him over her childhood friend," one of them said. "This orphan can't help the Sterling family with anything," another added. "They don't match at all. What does Isabella even see in him? It can't possibly be his skills in the bedroom, right?" Their laughter echoed in the grand foyer, but I tried to tune them out, focusing only on the throbbing in my arm and the searing pain in my head. I was trying to assess my injuries when Isabella's voice cut through the air, making me freeze. "Leo, I told you my friends were coming over today. How could you make such a mess?" Her voice was sharp, annoyed. "There's oil all over the carpet. How can you be a proper son-in-law for the Sterling family like this?" I slowly looked up, my eyes meeting hers as she walked toward the group. It was only then that she seemed to notice the gash on my forehead and the way I was cradling my arm. "Why are you hurt again?" she asked, a flicker of concern finally crossing her face. She took a step toward me, but Julian immediately pulled her back. "Isabella," we agreed, he said firmly, his eyes fixed on me with a mocking glint. "This test continues until the day before the wedding." He then turned his attention fully to me. "Leo, didn't you say you love Isabella for who she is, not for the Sterling family's money? You have to prove to us, her good friends, that we can trust you with her." One of the other trust fund kids chimed in, nodding in agreement. "Peter's right. Quitting over a little injury just means you're after her money." Isabella hesitated, her uncertainty hitting me with the force of an arrow. I had never wanted to agree to this ridiculous and humiliating pre-wedding trial, but Isabella had coaxed me, her voice soft and persuasive. "Leo, my mother still cares about your background," she had said. "Once this test ends, I'll tell her everything. She'll see your dedication to me, and she'll finally accept you." We had been together for years, and I trusted her. I thought it would be harmless fun between friends, a few silly games. I never could have foreseen how cruel and dangerous Julian's tricks would be. I slowly rolled up my sleeves and pant legs, revealing a roadmap of bruises and scars from the past month. Gently, I began to explain. "Isabella," I said, my voice steady despite the pain. "The injury on my leg, that happened when Julian took us horse riding. He fed my horse some kind of strong herb that made it buck me off. Last week, When he suggested a cruise vacation, he pretended to accidentally push me off the yacht into the ocean. I continued, my voice growing tired, detailing each incident until I got to the oil slick on the floor. I don't want to do this anymore, Isabella, I said, exhausted. I don't want to accept this test. If you believe in our relationship, let's just keep our wedding date. If not, then we should reconsider. Before I could finish my sentence, Julian's hand shot out and he slapped me hard across the face. You wimp! He sneered, withdrawing his hand. How dare you try to interfere with the years of friendship Isabella and I have? I wiped a trickle of blood from the corner of my mouth with the back of my hand and looked at Isabella, my last hope resting on her. My heart sank. This was the same woman who used to fret for half a day if I got a minor paper cut. Now, she just rubbed her temples and sighed. Leo, as the future son-in-law of the Sterlings, how can you not handle even this small test? She had no intention of backing me up. Instead, she turned to her friends and invited them out for a garden party. As she left, she tossed a final, cutting remark over her shoulder. With our different standings in society, there's a huge gap between us. Unless you're willing to swallow your pride a bit, how can you ever expect to enter the Sterling family's gates? Isabella's attitude gave everyone permission to mock me openly. When she had protected me, her friends couldn't say a word against me. But now that she herself was looking down on me, their laughter became unrestrained. I clenched my fists, my knuckles white, ready to just turn and walk out of that house and out of her life forever. But then I heard one of them say, with such an unworthy lineage, Leo's ancestors must have been some kind of low-lifes. That was it. That was the comment that snapped the last thread of my control. By the time I was fully aware of my actions, my fist had already connected with his face. I lost my parents when I was young and grew up facing countless challenges, learning to keep my head down to survive. But my family was my pride. My grandfather fought in countless wars for this country, his body bearing the marks of multiple bullet wounds. He was a gallant soldier. My grandmother devoted her entire life to scientific research, solving critical technical problems for the nation before she died in a lab accident, running back inside to protect valuable data. Both of my parents died in the line of duty, working to bring peace to troubled regions, leaving me an orphan at 5 years old. I could tolerate their insults to me, but I could not and would not tolerate anyone insulting them. After a few chaotic moments, Isabella rushed back in to separate us. Both of us had marks from the fight, and every movement was painful. Each breath felt like a knife stabbing my insides. Enough! Isabella's voice was sharp with anger, and the tense atmosphere in the room thickened. I felt a lump form in my throat, tears welling in my eyes. Isabella, I said, my voice thick with emotion. He showed disrespect to my family. I need him to apologize. I admit, in that vulnerable moment, I still hoped that the powerful Isabella I knew would stand up for me. I wanted justice, not for me, but for the memory of my family. But her response was like a bucket of ice water. Leo, as the future son-in-law of the Sterlings, how can you act like a lunatic and hit someone? If my mother hears about this, it'll affect how she sees you. It felt like I was back in that freezing winter day, the cold seeping into my very bones. I stared into her eyes, searching for the affection I once knew, but it had been completely replaced by cold indifference. Fine, I thought. If that's how it is, I don't need someone like her. I glanced at Julian and forced a weak, bitter smile. You win, I said. The test is off. And so is the wedding. Isabella's expression finally changed, a flash of panic in her eyes. She grabbed my hand. Leo, don't joke about canceling the wedding. Julian and his friends just sneered. Stop trying to scare Isabella, Leo. You have no parents and nothing but some useless medals your grandparents left you. Where are you going to find someone as wealthy and beautiful as her? Seeing my resolve, Isabella's worried look eased, and she ruffled my hair in that familiar, patronizing way. The wedding is the day after tomorrow, she said with a smile. Grandma sent a family heirloom as a wedding gift. Go rest upstairs, and when the jade bracelet arrives, you can put it on for me. I felt utterly defeated, too drained to argue anymore. I just shook her hand off and went back to my room. As I walked away, I heard one of her friends say, Don't give him so much attention, or he'll take advantage of it. You're the Sterling heiress. You can't let him run away. I smirked bitterly to myself. Everyone thought I was the lucky one, an orphan who had managed to snag Isabella Sterling. They couldn't imagine a world where I would be the one to leave her. But they were wrong. I picked up my phone and called my former director. "I've made up my mind," I said. "I'm ready to take that opportunity to study and work abroad." The director was thrilled. "Great, Leo. You are highly talented in medicine. Your hands are made for surgery. Study well abroad, and come back as a top surgeon to save more lives." I didn't have much to pack. I left the engagement ring on the desk and headed downstairs, ready to leave for good. As I reached the foyer, I bumped into the family butler. He wore pristine white gloves, and his bow was respectful, but his expression was full of contempt. "Mr. Leo," he said, "here is the family heirloom from the old lady. Please check it." He presented a strange wooden box that looked more like something you draw raffle tickets from, with a hole in the top to reach inside. It seemed odd. Shouldn't a priceless jade bracelet be in a proper jewelry box? But I didn't think much of it. "Please return the bracelet to the old lady," I said. "The engagement with Isabella is off." I tried to move past him, but two large bodyguards blocked my path. The butler gave a fake, polished smile. "I'm sorry, Mr. Leo, but my job is simply to deliver the item. Please check it and don't make my job difficult." I sighed, thinking I would just take the bracelet and return it to Isabella myself to end this farce. I reluctantly reached my hand inside the box. Suddenly, a sharp, searing pain shot through my fingers, like 1,000 tiny needles burning me all at once. I yelled and yanked my hand back. The box tumbled from the butler's grasp and crashed to the floor, releasing a swarm of angry wasps that buzzed furiously towards my face. I grabbed a nearby cushion to shield myself, but the wasps were relentless, chasing and stinging me repeatedly. Julian appeared at the doorway, leaning lazily against the frame. "Leo," he said with a drawl, "I had someone mix honey into that ointment you used for your injuries earlier today." My eyes and mouth were already swelling, the pain intense and disorienting. Through my blurred vision, I saw Isabella rushing over, wrapping my head with a jacket to shield me from the swarm. When I woke up, I was in a private room at a hospital owned by the WJ Group. I was still dazed, my thoughts foggy, when I overheard Isabella talking with her friends just outside my door. "Isabella, you can't blame Julian," one of them said. "Leo agreed to the test, and the wasps were just part of it." Then Julian's voice, low and conspiratorial. "I had the doctor add a little something to his medicine, just enough to affect his nerves. Combined with the wasp venom, if it goes untreated for another half hour, Leo's hands won't be able to perform surgery anymore. Isabella, you've always wanted him to be a full-time stay-at-home guy, right? Isn't this exactly what you wanted?" My heart turned to a block of ice. I reached for my phone on the bedside table, and the slight noise startled them. "Leo! You're awake!" Isabella's eyes brightened as she walked quickly into the room. She asked softly, "Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere?" I grabbed her hand, my grip tight, like she was my last lifeline. "Isabella, I heard everything," I pleaded, my voice cracking. "I beg you, please call the doctor. I can't lose my hand. Please." She knew. She knew how much effort I had poured into my medical career, that my dream was to save lives with these hands. But when she met my pleading eyes, Isabella simply remained silent. My heart, which had been turning to ice, now shattered completely. She patted my hand and looked away. "Leo, you misunderstood. Your hand is fine. You don't need surgery." Anger, betrayal, and the terrifying fear of never being able to hold a scalpel again mixed into a toxic cocktail inside me. For the first time, I felt a surge of courage to resist her and her powerful family. I struggled to get out of bed, reaching for my phone. "This is the WJ Group's hospital. I need to call the police. I need to get transferred." Julian stepped into the room and brutally stomped on my injured hand. I screamed in agony. Isabella just stood there, her expression now a cold smirk. An orphan trying to seek help? In this city, Leo, no one dares to challenge our families. All my pain and grievances came pouring out of me in a torrent of words. "Why?" I shouted, my voice breaking. "Why are you doing this to me? I told you so many times, I love you for who you are. You forced me to take these tests, and then I said I don't want the tests or the wedding anymore. Why are you ruining my hand?" My voice broke, and hot tears streamed down my cheeks. Isabella's reply was chillingly calm. "Leo, you just can't operate anymore. Why not enjoy a comfortable life as the Sterling family's house husband? She stood up and walked towards the door, instructing the guard stationed outside. Make sure Mr. Leo doesn't leave this room. She truly intended to destroy my hand, to destroy my dream, to destroy me. My hope faded like a dying light. I couldn't tell which was worse, the poison spreading through my nerves or the heartbreak consuming my soul. What was somehow even more ridiculous, more twisted, was hearing one of Isabella's friends outside urging her to finally leave me for Julian. But Isabella's reply was firm. Even though Leo's status doesn't match mine, and even though my mother can't accept him, I will only marry Leo. I believe he loves me, just like I love him, forever. No, Isabella, I thought, a bitter laugh caught in my throat. I will never love you again. The swelling pain in my hand was relentless. Within minutes, I was soaked in a cold sweat from the agony. In unbearable pain, I crawled across the floor and picked up my phone. I opened the photo album to a picture of an old, yellowed address book. I remembered my grandfather's words from long ago. Leo, I'm getting old, and I may not be around when you grow up. The people in this address book were my comrades. I saved their lives, and if you ever face difficulties once I'm gone, they'll help you, they'll protect you. I knew that any one of those names belonged to someone who could overpower elite families like the Sterlings. One of them was a man named Jack Harrison. When I was young, we lived through poverty, but my grandfather never once sought their help. He never wanted to ask for favors in return for his past deeds. I couldn't tarnish my grandfather's honorable name now. Trembling, I placed my phone back on the floor, letting the pain consume me. In the end, I didn't call that number. By the time I was brought back to the Sterling mansion, it was already dusk. The doctor they had brought in regretfully informed me, "Your hand can still function for daily tasks, but you won't be able to perform surgery again. It's such a pity. I've seen videos of your surgeries. Your heart stent procedures are top-notch in this country. I thought about reporting Julian and the others for intentional harm. But what chance did a common person have against these wealthy, powerful families? It was a tough, almost impossible battle to win. I just wanted to leave, to find a place far away from these people I could not fight. As soon as I stepped into my bedroom, someone struck me from behind and I was knocked unconscious. Before I passed out, I felt Julian force my limp hand onto a document, pressing my fingers into an ink pad and then onto the paper. When I woke up, all my luggage was gone. My phone buzzed with a new message. It was just an address and a single sentence. If you want those damn medals back, come over. Those medals were not just pieces of metal. They were exchanged for the very lives of my parents and grandparents. I had to get them back. But I was just one person, poor and alone. How could I possibly fight against the rich and powerful? After a long moment of despair, I closed my eyes, my hand shaking, and for the first time in my life, I dialed the number from my grandfather's address book. When I rushed to the auction house, the scene that greeted me made my blood run cold and then boil with rage. There, on a low stage, were 39 dogs. And around the necks of each of those 39 dogs hung the legacy medals left by my parents and grandparents, the medals I carefully polished and cherished every single day. My fists clenched so tightly I thought my knuckles would crack. All I wanted was to launch myself at Julian and wipe the smug look off his face. Leo, these are my things now, he said, raising an eyebrow and unfolding a piece of paper. I have it here in black and white, proof that you gave them to me for free. My chest heaved with fury. The document he had forced me to sign while I was unconscious. This man was truly despicable. He arrogantly declared, "If you've got the guts, just auction them back. Consider it your last pre-marriage test." Others in the crowd watched the tension between us, but no one dared to pick a side until they knew where Isabella stood. She was sitting nearby, and with a casual wave of her hand, she sealed my fate. "Oh, they're just some broken old medals. If anyone wants them, feel free to bid." That was the signal. Now everyone understood it was open season on my dignity. "I recently got a pet pig," one man chuckled. "Maybe I'll bid for one as a toy." "I don't have any pets," said another, "but I could bid on one and use it as a coaster for my coffee table." The whispers grew louder, more vicious. I heard Julian telling people that my parents were thugs who died in a street fight, that my granddad went to jail and my grandma was a thief. How could they possibly have earned medals? No doubt he bought them at a flea market to brag, someone sneered. I even heard a version that claimed my entire family was involved in prostitution. I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood, the fury inside me nearly bursting out. Julian just chuckled. Leo, I know you're super broke, so how about this? For every bow you make to this crowd, I'll light one sky lantern for you, okay? His eyes gleamed with a wicked light. Or, if you don't want to bow, you can take off some clothes instead. Take off one piece of clothing and I'll light a lantern for you each time. Without waiting for my answer, Julian blew a sharp whistle. A bodyguard walked over, took a medal off a dog's neck, and tossed it disdainfully onto the ground. The dog wagged its tail, lifted its leg, and urinated right on the medal. That, Julian sneered, is what happens to these medals. No. I stared, my eyes nearly bursting from their sockets, towards Isabella. She just sat there with an indifferent look on her face, the hint of a smile playing on her lips. My hate for her, for all of them, surged to its absolute peak. Julian's eyes were filled with venom. Quicker, Leo. Choose? Bow or strip? My eyes burned red. They had taken things too far. We ordinary people, without power or influence, couldn't even protect the legacies of our parents and grandparents. As Julian was about to whistle again, my fingernails dug into my palms. My parents had always taught me to have a backbone, to stand tall, but I couldn't stand by and watch the medals that represented their honor and their very lives be stomped on and defiled. Hot tears of humiliation rolled down my cheeks, and I began to bend my knees, preparing to bow. Just then, a stern, powerful voice rang out through the hall. Don't you dare kneel. Let's see who dares to disrespect these medals today. Who dares to disrespect our nation's heroes? Everyone turned towards the entrance. The moment they saw who was standing there, their faces changed. One by one, they all stood up in a wave of sudden respect. I turned around, stunned. At the entrance stood an elder in a sharp suit, leaning on a cane. Tears instantly welled in my eyes. It was my granddad's comrade, Jack Harrison. He had actually come. Someone in the crowd shouted his name in a hushed, awe-filled tone. It's Jack Harrison. Behind him were several prominent political figures I had only ever seen on television. They followed Mr. Harrison with the utmost respect. He had white hair, but his posture was straight and he was full of energy, his eyes sharp and piercing. His gaze swept over the room, and under its weight, everyone instinctively lowered their heads. He tapped his cane once on the marble floor, the sound echoing loudly in the silent room. Do you know how these medals came to be? He asked, his voice booming with authority. He pointed to one of the dogs. That first medal was from 1931, back when... He went on, recounting the heroic origins of all 39 medals. As he recalled the past, tears flowed down his old cheeks. Leo's parents and grandparents are all heroes who defended our country, he declared, his hands shaking with anger. But what about you? What have you all done? You've been enjoying the peace and stability that those brave souls bought with their blood, and yet you use your family's power to bully the child of a fallen hero. Great, just great. Julian and his group stood there trembling, unable to utter a single word. The scornful looks from the other wealthy families faded away, replaced by expressions of guilt and shame. Some of them began to apologize to me. We're really sorry, Leo. We shouldn't have mocked you or looked down on you. I pressed my lips together, trying to hold back my own tears. A middle-aged woman standing next to Mr. Harrison was rapidly tapping on a tablet. Mr. Harrison, she said, I've looked into it. The primary individuals who disrespected Leo in the security footage are from the Sterling, Johnson, and Miller families. Julian panicked and looked desperately to Isabella for help. Isabella, say something for us. Doesn't Leo listen to you the most? The entire group of friends was now anxious, sweat beading on their foreheads as they crowded around her. Yeah, Isabella, we were just testing if Leo truly loves you. If you had only told us about his family background, we would have never messed with him. Exactly. Our parents respect fallen heroes the most. They went through that era too. We wouldn't have dared to touch a hero's orphan if we had known. Isabella's face was a mask of thoughtful calculation. Her lips parted to speak. Leo, you never told me about your family. But then, a realization seemed to dawn on her, and her expression turned excited. My grandfather is a retired veteran who deeply respects heroes. With your status, my father won't oppose our marriage anymore. Our wedding in 2 days can finally get everyone's blessing. I just looked at her, my expression cold as stone. Mr. Harrison frowned and turned to me, asking gently, Is this young lady who was watching you get bullied your fiancé? I realized this was my chance, my final and complete break from Isabella. I nodded to Mr. Harrison. Yes, Mr. Harrison. But I have already told her that we are calling off the engagement. She might not agree. /proster/id/. Isabella's excited smile froze on her face, which went pale in an instant. Leo, what do you mean by that? Didn't I tell you not to joke about calling off the engagement? My expression turned deadly serious. Isabella, we have been together for 7 years, and in all that time, I have never once joked about breaking up. Calling off this engagement was a well-thought-out decision. As she finally realized I was serious, Isabella stumbled back, her eyes reddening. Leo, after all our 7 years of love, how could you be so heartless? She murmured. No, I won't agree to cancel the engagement. Leo, I only love you, and I will only marry you. Her eyes turned fierce and possessive. You can't leave me. My heart clenched at her words, a painful echo of what we once had. Mr. Harrison patted my shoulder reassuringly. Don't be afraid, good kid. Your grandfather and I go way back. He saved my life 3 times on the battlefield. After the victory, we went our separate ways and lost touch. I only found out today that you're his grandson. No wonder I've been unable to find him all these years. His grandson is like my own. Rest assured, with me here, the Sterlings won't dare to lay a finger on you. I nodded gratefully. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. He then turned to Isabella, his tone changing abruptly to one of cold authority. The Sterling girl. Not only did you allow your fiancé to be bullied, but now you want to pull some power game on him? He took out his phone and dialed a video call. It seems your grandfather spoiled you far too much. I'll have a word with him about your upbringing. A ringing sound came from nearby, followed by an elderly voice full of guilt. Jack, it's my fault. It's all my fault for not teaching her well. Isabella looked over, shocked to see her own grandfather on the screen of a phone held by one of the political figures. Grandpa, what are you doing here? Her gaze shifted, and she saw more familiar faces among the crowd. Dad? You two? It wasn't just Isabella's grandfather and father who had shown up. The parents from many of the elite families were now present. The younger generation quickly ran to their elders, and a chorus of surprised voices filled the auction hall. Grandpa, aren't you supposed to be at a board meeting? Mom, weren't you dealing with an acquisition? The scene was chaotic. All of these respected, powerful elite figures swiftly gathered around Mr. Harrison, greeting him with polite, almost reverent deference. This sight made the younger ones even more fearful, and they shrank back like whipped puppies. Isabella's grandfather, Mr. Sterling, repeatedly apologized to Mr. Sterling. Harrison. I'm sorry, Jack. I didn't expect a simple auction to bring you here. It's my lack of discipline. Mr. Harrison huffed. No apologies to me are needed. You all should be apologizing to Sam's grandson. He scanned the room, his gaze calm but commanding, and everyone stiffened. I looked down, my thoughts swirling. So this is how simple it is to make powerful elites bow their heads. So this is what it feels like to have someone backing you up. Mr. Harrison spoke up again, and even though Mr. Sterling felt bad for his granddaughter, he couldn't cover for her. Isabella had always been fearless in this city, but her grandfather was the one person she was truly afraid of. Without hesitating, she dropped to her knees on the cold floor. Grandpa, she began, but he cut her off. Mr. Sterling shook his head, unable to hide his profound disappointment. Isabella, how could you do something so low? Your childhood friend urged you to test the person you were going to spend the rest of your life with, and you allowed it, leaving him scarred. To keep him home, you conspired to make it so he could never use a scalpel again. You even worked with outsiders to steal his family's medals and tried to force him to kneel in public. And you still expect him to forgive you and marry you? At this point, Mr. Sterling was beyond angry. He took a riding whip from his assistant. I will handle this myself today. I will teach you a lesson. With a sharp crack of the whip, Isabella's shirt was immediately stained with blood. She gritted her teeth, looking like she could faint at any moment. Her father watched with pain in his eyes, but didn't dare plead for her. The other second-generation kids, now being dealt with by their own elders, were also being battered and bruised. Sterling returned the whip to the tray and came over to me. Leo, I heard everything that happened on my way here. It's all because we, the Sterlings, did not discipline our child properly. Relax. The Sterling family will do everything in its power to treat your hand. Also, your engagement to Isabella is officially off. I promise she will not bother you again." Isabella abruptly looked up, her face a mask of desperation. "No, Grandpa! I can't be without Leo. I don't agree to cancel the engagement." At the same time, Julian's face lit up with a flicker of sick joy, but Mr. Sterling's next words wiped that smile clean off his face. "Furthermore, we, the Sterlings, will sever all business ties with the Johnson family." The two families were major business partners, their interests deeply entangled. Julian's father was stunned, then furious. He kicked his son hard in the chest. "You ingrate! You caused this much trouble right after coming back. You might as well have stayed abroad. From this day on, all of your cards are frozen. Tomorrow, I will arrange a marriage for you." Julian scrambled up from the floor and without a second thought knelt before his father, begging for mercy. "Dad, please, don't stop my cards. Don't force me to marry. I know I'm wrong." His father just kicked him aside. "Get lost. You're a disgrace." I looked around the room. The bolder Isabella's friends had been before, the more pitiful they looked now. Their elders gathered around me, smiling obsequiously. "Leo, I have disciplined the unruly child at home. Is that enough for you? If you still have any grievances, just say the word. I will deal with it until you are satisfied. These kids have been spoiled senseless. I will ground him so he can reflect properly." I knew this was all out of respect for Mr. 2000 Harrison, and it was that realization that allowed me to be gracious. "I thank you all for standing up for me," I said. "Let's let this matter be for now." A collective sigh of relief went through the room. Mr. Harrison's assistant returned my medals to me, each one now polished and resting in a velvet-lined case. I thanked them earnestly. "Grandpa Jack," I said, the name feeling natural, "thank you for today. If you hadn't come, I might have returned home injured and humiliated once again." Mr. Harrison smiled warmly. "My child, I want to take you in as my own grandson. Would you agree to that?" The room fell silent once more. With Mr. Harrison's status, who wouldn't want to have a connection with him? The other young people in the room looked on with raw envy, Julian's eyes red with jealousy. I nodded without hesitation. "Yes," I replied. "I would like that very much." Mr. Harrison laughed heartily. "Good. I will arrange a day to make it official. From now on, Leo is my grandson. Anyone who dares to mess with him is challenging the Harrison family." "Rest assured, Mr. Harrison," the parents chimed in. "We wouldn't dare offend Leo." Isabella's father added respectfully, "Leo, I apologize for overlooking you in the past." I remembered the first time I visited the Sterling mansion with Isabella. Her father had sat on a plush leather sofa, sipping expensive tea without even looking up at me. "This fine tea requires a fine cup," he had said, his words subtle yet pointed. "Don't you think, Leo?" Later, after Isabella fought with him for me, threatening to give up her position as the family heir, her mother called me to their home. She dropped her elegant facade and slapped me harshly. "An orphan looking to marry into the Sterling family? As long as I am alive, you will never be accepted." Back then, I thought I would never be able to change her mother's mind. I had contemplated leaving, but then I saw Isabella, the pampered lady, living with me in a tiny rental apartment, working long hours, and saving every penny just to buy me a nice watch. I swallowed back the words, "Let's break up." When she told me this test was the only way to get her mother's approval, I endured it all. But in the end, it had led to this. Now, because of Mr. Harrison, Isabella's father was treading on eggshells, terrified of offending me. I chuckled softly to myself. As Mr. Harrison and I left the auction house, I glanced back one last time at Isabella. Her eyes were filled with desperation and an unwillingness to let go, a pain so palpable it seemed to have no end. I silently said my goodbyes. "Goodbye, Isabella. Goodbye to us." After the Harrisons officially adopted me, they sent me abroad for treatment and further studies. With the support of their family, I gained access to medical resources and mentors I had never even dreamed of before. I worked harder than I ever had in my life and managed to finish in 1 year what normally takes other students 3 or 4 years to complete. During this time, Isabella apparently tried to sneak abroad several times to find me, but her grandfather always caught her and stopped her. Philip, Mr. Harrison's grandson, who was now like a brother to me, sent me a video one day. "Look," his message said. "Does this make you feel better?" The video showed Isabella in her room, her feet chained to the bedpost, surrounded by empty beer bottles. Her eyes were hollow, like a dead lake. She looked incredibly worn out, with stubble on her chin, oozing an aura of decay. "Serves her right for bullying you," Philip wrote. "I even snatched a few business projects from her family to teach them a lesson." I felt a warmth in my heart, a sense of being protected that was still new to me. Philip, all excited, sent another video. "And that guy, Julian? Guess what? It was a wedding video." Julian looked utterly miserable, holding the arm of a woman who looked to be in her late 40s or early 50s. If you looked closely, you could see a faint bruise on his cheek. With Julian's family background and looks, he could have married someone much better, Philip explained. But after his dad found out he messed with our family, he specifically picked the worst possible match for him as punishment. "Bro, you just focus on your studies over there. I promise you, everyone who ever bullied you isn't getting away with it." I typed and deleted and typed, but finally just sent back a simple, "Okay." Philip had once told me, "We're family now. No need to be so formal." 6 months later, I finished my studies and returned home. I turned down offers from top medical institutions abroad and went back to my old hospital to work as a surgeon. They threw a grand welcome party for me. Midway through the party, I stepped outside onto a balcony for some fresh air. There, in the distance, I saw a familiar figure. It was Isabella. She stared at me, her voice shaky. "Leo." I begged Grandpa for a long time, and he finally let me come here. How have you been?" I could see the longing and the deep, unresolved emotion in her eyes, a trace of a pain that was just like the one I had carried for so long. For a fleeting moment, I remembered the good times. In our small rental room, Isabella resting on the sofa, with dark circles under her eyes from staying up all night to nurse me through a fever. I remember joking once about wanting our own paradise, and she went out and bought a small, undeveloped island, planting the first tree there herself. In the lavender fields of Provence, Isabella, with teary eyes, had knelt and proposed to me. "If I can't spend the rest of my life with you," she had said, "then life is meaningless." Maybe she really did love me once. But it didn't matter anymore. I smiled a genuine, peaceful smile. "I'm doing well," I said. Seeing my relaxed smile, Isabella's eyes lit up with a desperate hope. "Leo, does this mean you forgive me?" Suddenly, her steps halted. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her gaze shifting to someone behind me. A young woman named Chloe gently linked her arm with mine, her gesture clearly possessive. "Leo, is this the blind ex-girlfriend you told me about?" I gave a slight nod. Chloe reached out her hand theatrically. "Hi, ex-girlfriend. I'm the fiancé. Nice to meet you." She then pulled her hand back with a smirk. "Oh no, wait. You really can't teach me anything, can you? After all, I won't be so stupid as to lose my fiancé over some manipulative childhood friend." I grinned as she smirked at me. We had met at a Harrison family gathering and clicked instantly. She was snarky and sharp-tongued to everyone else, but with me, she was always warm and playful. "We're going back inside?" I said to Isabella, waving casually. "Catch you later." The night was perfect. As we walked back into the party, Chloe whispered in my ear, "She's practically glued to you with her eyes. Don't you dare go meet her in secret." "You know what happens if I get jealous." I quickly promised, "I won't meet her. Definitely not." Isabella watched intently as we walked away. She saw me say something to Chloe, and then saw Chloe playfully tap my nose. Then, Chloe jumped onto my back, and I carried her into the party, her legs kicking joyfully in the air. It was just like some forgotten afternoon, in summer or winter, when Isabella herself had asked me to carry her just like that. They were memories she had dwelled on repeatedly, replaying them in her mind for over a year. A long moment after we disappeared inside, she crouched down on the cold pavement, covering her eyes with her hands. Deep, gut-wrenching sobs escaped her, as if something deep inside her had finally, completely shattered.